The vastness of space was a canvas of silent, inky black, dotted with the cold, distant gleam of stars. A sleek, angular spacecraft, the Observer 7, sliced through this cosmic expanse. Inside, the hum of advanced alien technology filled the bridge, a stark contrast to the quiet tension among its crew. Commander Xylos, his multiple eyes scanning the holographic display before him, adjusted his specialized breathing apparatus. His chitinous armor gleamed under the soft internal lights. Every movement was precise, every decision calculated. Beside him, Sub-Commander Kith, younger and a bit more prone to expressing his internal thoughts, fidgeted with a datapad. Across the bridge, Scientific Officer Xylo, a creature of pure logic and data, meticulously analyzed incoming sensor readings. Entering Sector GAMMA-7, designation Planet 47B, code Hazardous Level 4, Xylo stated, his voice a low, resonant rumble through the comms. All units confirm environmental seals. Maintain strict adherence to protocol. Our mission is survey and data acquisition, not engagement. Kith sighed, a soft hiss of displaced air. Hazardous Level 4, Commander? The last time we encountered a Level 4, we lost 3 survey vessels to local fauna. Xylo's voice, a dry, precise tone, cut in. Statistical probability of hostile encounter within acceptable parameters for survey objectives, Sub-Commander. Furthermore, our scans indicate unique geological formations that could yield invaluable mineral data. Valuable or not, I prefer my limbs attached, Kith muttered, but then straightened as Xylos turned one of his many eyes towards him. Xylos didn't need to speak. His posture alone communicated disapproval. The Observer 7 descended, piercing the planet's thick, swirling atmosphere. Below, a landscape of jagged, crimson mountains and dense, bioluminescent jungles unfolded. The sensors immediately began to scream. Commander, multiple high-density biological signatures detected, Xylo announced, his voice lacking any discernible alarm, just factual reporting. Numerous large, predatory life forms. Oxygen levels fluctuating. High radiation spikes, and unexpected flora with neurotoxic properties. Xylos nodded slowly. As expected. Set up automated perimeter defenses. We will establish a temporary base camp at the coordinates provided. No ground team leaves the perimeter without my direct authorization and full hazard suits. The Observer 7 settled onto a flat, rocky plateau. Ramps deployed, and an automated deployment system began to set up the temporary base. A compact metallic dome shimmering with energy shields. The air outside was thick, humid, and vibrated with the deep growls and screeches of unseen creatures. Kith felt a shiver run down his spine, despite his protective gear. They had barely finished deploying the first sensor array when Xylo's calm voice once again filled the comms. Commander, anomalous reading. Thermal signature detected. Non-native biological, approximately 2.1 meters in height. Moving rapidly through the jungle, no discernible hazard suit. Xylos's head snapped towards the main display. Non-native? That's impossible. No known species would traverse a Level 4 planet without significant protective measures. The holographic map showed a small, rapidly moving red dot. It was heading directly towards a known high-density predator zone. Is it a native life form with unusual thermal properties? Kith ventured, hoping for a logical explanation. Xylo's data projected onto the screen, a rough outline of a bipedal creature. Analysis complete. Biologically, it's impossible. Oxygen requirement, extreme. Radiation tolerance, beyond known limits. And yet, it registers as a living organism. Zoom in, Xylos commanded, his voice tinged with a rare curiosity. The image on the screen zoomed in, resolving into a surprisingly clear, if grainy, picture. It was a bipedal figure, moving with an almost reckless abandon through the dense jungle. They wore thin, flexible coverings that barely resembled protective gear. And then, the figure stopped. It knelt by a large, thorny bush, its head tilted as if listening. Xylos leaned closer. What is it doing? Scanning indicates it is interacting with local flora, Xylo replied, a hint of something akin to confusion in his voice. No aggressive posture. It appears to be observing. Just then, a massive, multi-limbed creature, covered in sharp, crystalline scales, burst from the undergrowth. Its roar was deafening, even through the ship's hull. The creature was easily twice the size of the bipedal figure, and its claws glowed with the toxic energy. Xylos braced himself for the inevitable. It's been attacked, Prepare for extraction, we may be able to salvage some data. But what happened next froze the entire alien crew. The bipedal figure didn't run. It didn't even seem to panic. Instead, it tilted its head further, a strange, wide expression on its face. And then, it reached out a hand. By the void, Kith whispered, his multiple eyes wide with disbelief. It's touching it. The giant, monstrous predator, which should have torn the biped to shreds, instead, twitched. Its glowing claws retracted. It let out a confused, almost whimper-like sound. The bipedal figure then did something even stranger. It began to gently rub the creature's head, making soft, cooing noises. The massive predator seemed to purr. Xylo's data readings were flashing erratically. Physiological response from local fauna is unexpected, submissive behavior, affectionate interaction. This is highly irregular. Xylo stared at the screen, his logical mind struggling to process what he was seeing. This small, apparently fragile biped had just calmed a level 4 apex predator with a simple touch. "Sub-Commander," Xylos finally said, his voice unusually strained. "Prepare a small scout team. Full stealth. We need to observe these humans more closely." The silence on the bridge was broken only by the continued purring of the massive alien beast, a sound that, to the logical aliens, was utterly horrifying coming from such a creature. This was not a survey mission anymore. This was a deep dive into the utterly illogical. No. The scout team, led by Commander Xylos, moved through the dense bioluminescent jungle. Their advanced stealth technology rendered them invisible to the naked eye and undetectable by standard scans. Yet, even with their superior equipment, the environment was a constant assault on their heightened senses. The air hummed with unseen life, and every rustle in the undergrowth suggested a hidden threat. Sensors picking up multiple energy signatures from the human encampment. Xylo's voice crackled softly in their comms. Highly irregular patterns, fluctuating energy output, inconsistent with known power generation or shielding protocols. Are they malfunctioning? Kith whispered, his optical sensors straining to pierce the gloom. Unlikely. The readings suggest deliberate, yet unrefined energy expenditure, as if they are creating heat and light for no logical purpose. As they drew closer, the source of the irregular energy became terrifyingly clear. Through a gap in the foliage they saw it. A roaring inferno, contained within a circle of scorched earth. Around it the humans sat, completely unprotected. "It's fire," Xylos murmured, a note of pure disbelief in his tone. "Uncontrolled combustion. They are willingly exposing themselves to high thermal output and noxious fumes." He watched, horrified, as a human, the same one who had tamed the apex predator, reached into the flames with a stick. They pulled out a blackened, misshapen object, blowing on it before taking a bite. "They are consuming charred organic matter," Xylo reported, his voice flat. "The nutritional value would be minimal, and the carcinogenic properties extreme. Why? Perhaps a ritual?" Kith offered, trying to make sense of the madness. "A display of their resilience?" Suddenly, the human encampment erupted in a cacophony of sound. A rhythmic, pounding beat accompanied by a series of high-pitched, guttural noises. "Auditory distress signals?" Xylos questioned, his multifaceted eyes widening. "Are they being attacked?" Xylo's analysis quickly contradicted him. "Negative, Commander. The sound patterns indicate structured vocalizations. Repetitive. They appear to be performing a dance, and the rhythmic pounding is self-inflicted percussion." The scout team watched, bewildered, as the humans moved their bodies in erratic, seemingly meaningless ways. Some were howling with what seemed like pleasure. Others were twisting their limbs at unnatural angles. This was not survival. This was enjoyment. "Their energy output is actually increasing during this dance," Kith observed, fascinated despite himself. "Their heart rates are elevated. Muscle activity is immense, for no discernible combat or survival purpose." "This dance is consuming valuable energy," Xylos stated, trying to apply logic. "Energy that could be used for foraging or defensive measures. It's inefficient." Their observation was interrupted by a new, more immediate threat. A ground tremor rippled through the planet. The dense jungle around them began to shake. Through their thermal vision, they saw it. A colossal creature, easily 10 times the size of their ship, lumbering directly towards the human camp. Its body glowed with internal heat, and its footsteps echoed like thunder. This was the Great Rumbler, a creature known for its indiscriminate destruction. "Commander, incoming level 5 threat," Xylo announced, his tone finally betraying a hint of urgency. "Collision course with human settlement in approximately 1.7 minutes. Advise immediate evacuation of their location or prepare to observe total annihilation." Xylos gripped his comms unit. "Evacuate them? They are too far, and our mission does not permit direct intervention." He paused, a strange mixture of dread and morbid fascination in his multiple eyes. "Prepare to observe." The Great Rumbler was now visible to the naked eye, its immense form tearing through the jungle with terrifying ease. It let out a deafening bellow that shook the very air. The humans, instead of scattering in panic, turned towards the creature. The fire still crackled behind them, casting long, dancing shadows. And then, the humans did the most illogical thing yet. They didn't run. They didn't even pick up a weapon. The human named Ava, who had befriended Blinky, stepped forward, her voice rising above the Rumbler's roar. She wasn't screaming in fear. She was shouting at the beast. "Hey, you! Watch where you're going!" Xylos's optical sensors nearly overloaded. This species, this utterly, unbelievably insane species, they were scolding an extinction-level event. The Great Rumbler paused, its massive head tilting, as if genuinely confused by the tiny, yelling speck before it. The sheer absurdity of the moment was almost too much for the logical aliens to bear. The Great Rumbler bellowed again, a sound that typically sent every living creature on Planet 47b scattering for cover. Yet the human named Ava stood her ground, her voice, impossibly, cutting through the thunderous roar. "Seriously, big guy, you almost stepped on my research station." Commander Xylos watched, dumbfounded, from his hidden vantage point. His alien mind struggled to reconcile the immense danger with the human's casual indignation. Sub-Commander Kith was practically vibrating with a mixture of fear and awe. Scientific Officer Xylo's data streams were a chaotic mess of anomalies. Then, the Rumbler lowered its massive head, its multiple eyes focusing on the tiny human. It was an intimidating posture, one that usually preceded a devastating charge. But Ava didn't flinch. Instead, she pointed a finger at its snout. "And if you step on Blinky, you're really gonna be in trouble." As if on cue, a blur of red and black darted from behind Ava. It was Blinky, the very apex predator that Xylos had observed Ava, quote, "keeming." Blinky, now seemingly unfazed by the larger creature, zipped around the Rumbler's massive legs, nipping playfully at its ankles. The Great Rumbler let out a confused whine, a sound utterly out of place for such a formidable beast. "It's playing?" Kith whispered, his voice incredulous. "Analysis indicates playful behavior from both organisms," Xylo confirmed, a faint processing whine audible in his comms. The smaller apex predator, designated Blinky, is initiating the interaction. The larger level 5 threat is responding in kind. Xylos could only stare. The beast that could level mountains was being playfully nudged by a creature half its size, a creature which itself was being treated like a house pet by a human. It defied all known logic of predator-prey dynamics. Suddenly, a new set of blips appeared on their long-range scanners. Not local fauna, but distinct, organized energy signatures. "Commander, unknown vessels entering orbit," Xylo announced, his tone now genuinely alarmed. "Multiple, heavily armed. Identified as the Kethar Collective. Aggressive engagement protocols detected. They are deploying ground forces." The Kethar, a highly militaristic and expansionist alien race, were known for their brutal efficiency and unwavering dedication to conquest. They were the very antithesis of casual exploration. "The Kethar," Xylos growled, his attention torn from the baffling humans. "On a level 4 world? They must be here for the geological deposits Xylo identified earlier, and they will annihilate anything in their path." Sure enough, multiple Kethar dropships plummeted through the atmosphere, their undersides glowing ominously. They landed with heavy thuds not far from the human camp, deploying platoons of heavily armored Kethar warriors. These aliens moved with chilling precision, their weapons humming with destructive energy. The humans, seemingly oblivious to the new, more conventional threat, were still playing with the Great Rumbler. Then, the lead Cathar commander, a hulking brute named Krax, spotted the humans. He scoffed, his voice a harsh growl over open comms. Primitive organisms. Likely the reason for the chaotic energy readings. Exterminate them. And the native fauna. Clear the sector for extraction. Xylos tensed. He knew the Cathar. They would vaporize the humans without a second thought. He was about to order his team to retreat when he saw the humans react. They didn't run. They didn't surrender. Instead, Captain Elias, the more pragmatic human, let out a booming laugh. Looks like we've got company, folks, and they don't look like they want to share our campfire. The other humans chuckled. In the face of overwhelming, technologically superior forces. Humans are demonstrating humor in a critical combat scenario, Xylos stated, his voice a bewildered monotone. Analysis indicates this is a coping mechanism, but also an act of defiance. Highly illogical. Then, the humans started moving. Not in a military formation, but a loose, almost chaotic pattern. Ava pointed towards a cluster of thick, thorny vines. Elias nodded and motioned to a group of humans who began, with surprising speed and coordination, to string the vines between trees, creating impromptu tripwires. Others began to gather large, heavy rocks. They were improvising. They are constructing rudimentary defensive measures, Kith reported, a new fascination replacing his fear. But they are so simple. The Cathar will shatter them instantly. Xylos could only watch, his sensors picking up the Cathar advancing, their laser rifles charging. He knew what was coming. Total annihilation. But something in the human's casual, almost joyful defiance made him hesitate. He had to see this. He had to understand. The Cathar advanced, their heavy boots thudding against the alien soil. Commander Krax, leading the charge, adjusted his targeting scope. Primitives. No threat. He gave the order, and the first volley of plasma bolts streaked towards the human camp. But the humans were no longer sitting by their illogical fire. They scattered, not in panic, but in what appeared to be a deliberately chaotic dance. The plasma bolts, designed to hit stationary targets or large formations, merely scorched the ground where the humans had been moments before. They are employing unpredictable, evasive maneuvers, Xylo reported, his voice tinged with genuine bafflement. Their movements do not conform to any known tactical doctrine. They are random. Random, my scales, Kith muttered, gripping his datapad. They just dodged a full volley of plasma fire. How is that random? As the Cathar pressed forward, their soldiers began tripping. The, quote, primitive vines, dismissed by Krax as mere jungle debris, proved surprisingly effective. Cathar warriors, encumbered by their heavy armor, tumbled, their weapons firing wildly into the sky. The tripwires are effective against the Cathar's heavy gate, Xylo confirmed, his analysis struggling to keep up with the absurdity. Their advanced sensors did not register the natural fiber as a threat. But the real chaos began when the humans unleashed their next tactic. From the thick foliage, a volley of projectiles flew. Not plasma, not energy. Rocks. Large, jagged rocks, hurled with surprising force. And not aimed at the Cathar's armored bodies, but at their exposed sensory optics and comms units. A Cathar warrior shrieked as a rock shattered its optical sensor. Another's helmet sparked as its comms unit was crushed. Confusion spread through their ranks. They were accustomed to fighting organized militaries with predictable tactics. This was barbarianism. Commander Krax bellowed into his comms. Ceasefire. Engage close-quarters combat. These primitives will fall to our blades. The Cathar drew their energy blades, their forms glowing menacingly as they charged into the jungle. This was their specialty. Direct, brutal combat. They expected the humans to break and run, far insane. But the humans didn't run. They met the charge. Captain Elias, with a roaring laugh, ducked under a sweeping energy blade and punched a Cathar warrior square in its faceplate. The aliens staggered back, surprised by the sheer, blunt force. Then, Blinky joined the fray. The once feared apex predator, now a loyal human companion, zipped through the Cathar lines. It wasn't attacking with lethal intent. It was nipping, scratching, and generally being an utter nuisance, darting in and out, disrupting their formations and distracting them. Krax himself swatted at Blinky, losing focus for a critical moment. The smaller apex predator is engaging in harassing maneuvers. Xylo's voice was now laced with what sounded suspiciously like exasperation. Its movements are too erratic for Cathar targeting systems. One Cathar warrior, frustrated by Blinky's antics, aimed his plasma rifle at the creature. Just as he was about to fire, Ava, the human scientist, leapt from a tree. She landed on the Cathar's back, wrapping her arms around its head and effectively blinding it. The Cathar warrior stumbled, firing its rifle into the sky. Xylos watched, his logical mind reeling. These humans weren't fighting. They were annoying their enemy into submission. Their every move was illogical, inefficient, and utterly terrifyingly effective. The Cathar, designed for direct combat, were losing their composure against a foe that refused to fight by any rules. Krax, seeing his elite forces descending into a chaotic melee of frustrated swings and missed shots, roared in disbelief. "This is not war! This is madness! Retreat! Retreat from these savages!" The Cathar forces, disoriented and demoralized by the sheer unpredictability of the humans, began to pull back, their precise formations broken, their pride shattered. They had come to conquer, but found themselves outmaneuvered by what they perceived as unruly, laughing primitives. Xylos, Kith, and Xylo watched as the last of the Cathar dropships vanished into the upper atmosphere. Below, the humans were cheering, high-fiving each other, and Captain Elias was even attempting to wrestle Blinky, who seemed to be enjoying the attention. "Commander," Kith said, his voice filled with a new kind of respect, almost reverence. They won. With rocks. And by petting a monster." Xylo's voice was subdued. "My algorithms for predicting combat outcomes are fundamentally flawed when applied to this species. Their randomness is, in fact, an adaptive supertrait. They are not illogical. They simply operate on a level of logic incomprehensible to us." Xylos finally spoke, his multiple eyes fixed on the triumphant humans. "They are not just illogical, Xylo. They are dangerous, not with their weapons, but with their sheer incomprehensible will, with their curiosity. They are indeed the curious predators." He turned to his crew, a grim determination setting in. "We will compile this data, and we will recommend that the Federation places this entire sector under the highest possible quarantine. Not for our protection, but for the protection of anyone foolish enough to underestimate humanity." The Observer 7 lifted silently into the sky, leaving the laughing humans and their monstrous pet below, forever changed by the encounter with a species that fought a war like it was just another day on the playground. The Observer 7 ascended, a silent sentinel pulling away from the bizarre, verdant world below. On the bridge, a heavy silence hung in the air, denser than the planet's atmosphere. Xylos, Kith, and Xylos stood before the main display, which now showed a compilation of their recent observations. The human taming, the apex predator, their casual handling of extreme environments, their illogical fire, and, most recently, their utterly baffling victory against the Cathar Collective. "The data is complete, Commander," Xylo finally stated, his voice devoid of its usual detached precision. "My models have recalibrated. All previous assumptions regarding biological resilience, tactical proficiency, and psychological stability are now obsolete when applied to human classification." Kith shook his head, a gesture of profound bewilderment. "They didn't just defeat the Cathar, Commander. They confused them. They made them retreat out of sheer bewilderment. Krax, the Butcher of Rigel, fleeing from a species that throws rocks and plays with monsters." Xylos turned from the display, his multifaceted eyes reflecting the glowing images of human recklessness. "They don't fight like a species concerned with survival, Kith. They fight like a species concerned with the challenge, with the fun of it. Their curiosity isn't just about exploration. It's a predatory drive to interact, to overcome, to understand even the most dangerous elements around them." He moved to the central console, activating the long-range comms. "This report will be unprecedented," he declared, more to himself than to his crew. "It will challenge every strategic doctrine in the Federation." His fingers, with their usual precision, began inputting the data. "Official report from Commander Xylos of the survey vessel Observer 7, planetary designation 47B, local species classification, human, threat assessment, extreme, Kith gasped softly. Extreme? Commander, they are not aggressive. They show no desire for conquest. Not in the ways we understand it, Kith, Xylos corrected, a new, chilling understanding in his voice. Their aggression isn't about territory or resources, it's about their nature. Their very existence is a threat to the established order of logic and predictability. They will adapt to anything. They will befriend anything. And they will, unintentionally or otherwise, destabilize any system they encounter, simply by being themselves. He continued inputting, his voice firm. Recommendation: immediate and indefinite Level 5 quarantine of Sector Gamma 7. No Federation vessel or personnel is to approach within 10,000 stellar units of Planet 47b. Any unauthorized approach will be met with full force. Xylo, the logical scientist, surprisingly offered no counter-argument. He seemed to be rerunning complex simulations in his mind, his conclusions leading to the same terrifying outcome. The humans were an anomaly too profound to risk. The threat is not their strength, not their technology, Xylos concluded, his gaze returning to the retreating image of Planet 47b. The threat is their sheer, unfathomable persistence. Their ability to find wonder in a death world, to find companionship with an apex predator, and to find amusement in a full-scale invasion. They are not conquerors, but they are something far more dangerous. They are the ultimate wildcard. Below, on the now peaceful surface of Planet 47b, the humans were gathered around their roaring fire. Captain Elias was strumming a crude instrument, its notes surprisingly melodic in the alien night. Ava was sketching something in a worn notebook, Blinky curled contentedly at her feet, occasionally letting out a rumble that sounded suspiciously like a purr. They talked of future expeditions, of new discoveries, and of the odd, nervous aliens they had briefly encountered. They laughed, a sound that, from the vastness of space, seemed both joyful and utterly, terrifyingly, incomprehensible. They were just being human, and that was enough to make the galaxy hold its breath.